Now, generally speaking, the reaction from the DP camp has been bring it on. The reaction to the planned or threatened impeachment of the deputy president. In fact, one supporter of the deputy president put it even more bluntly. He said, if the people coming after the deputy president are real men and have been circumcised, then let them try. That sounds to me like a thinly veiled threat. But the most shocking response, according to me, was from the deputy president himself. He said recently, sisi si wajinga, sisi ni watu ambao rada yao iko juu. Translation, we are not stupid people, and we are the kind of people who sense things and anticipate things very early. And then the deputy president said, kujeni pole pole, in reference to the people who are after him. Now, if you translate that directly, you lose the meaning, because the direct translation is come slowly. But this is the kind of thing, when you tell somebody kuja pole pole, it is an indication that you're ready. And it is an indication that if they come too fast towards you, they'll get hurt. It is the kind of thing you'd say if some people attacked you and they're unarmed. It's the kind of thing you'd say after drawing your knife. Kujeni pole pole. Because you're warning them, they'll get hurt. And that is what it really is. The deputy president is warning those who want to impeach him that they'll get hurt. Now, that is what really shocked me. Why did it shock me? It shocked me because of the mood of the deputy president. Actually, is spoiling for a fight. Contrary to what people think, that he has been cornered, clearly what his camp are saying and what he himself is saying is very clear. He's spoiling for a fight. Bring it on. And he appears to be serious. And so the immediate question is, why will those who are coming after the deputy president get hurt, get injured? Why? What exactly are his intentions? I think we can get a pretty good idea, or at least a very strong clue, from the recent and very sudden change of tactics by the handshake team in dealing with the deputy president. You will remember that Bwana Murathe told us that he had handed over a file to the DCI. You remember he was on a TV talk show, and then he said in very clear terms that he has already compiled evidence and that in fact they've handed over a file to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. I'm sure most of you remember that. It was an interview with a TV station. I believe it must have been Citizen TV. Now, the president is immune from prosecution while he's in office. However, his deputy does not enjoy the same protection. And so it would appear that the initial plan was to use the law courts. However, now it is emerging that the plan is to impeach the deputy president, keep the case out of the courts. Now, why would somebody want to keep a case out of the courts? Especially a case like this one, where it appears that people have enough evidence, enough solid evidence. And some of this solid evidence is even in the public domain. I say that because I sense somebody may ask me, Chris, why are you so sure the evidence is solid? So that's why I pointed out to that. Now, you're well aware that the courts have ruled that some certain pieces of land were acquired illegally. That has already been ruled by at least a court and also by the Land Commission. Now, just ask yourself one simple question. Is it legal to acquire land illegally? And when you get the answer to that question, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. So, the long and short of what I'm saying is that the court process, even as promising as it may look to legal experts, seems to have been halted. Now, why would somebody want to do this? One possible reason, is that during the court process, the accused person may pull out evidence incriminating some of his accusers. And therefore, if you go the impeachment way, you'll completely avoid that danger. And so, if you take that theory into consideration, the very threatening tone of the deputy president, as he said, wakuje pole pole, starts to make sense. Now, in my view, the deputy president is using the wrong tactics. He has many possible effective tactics to get out of this one, but he's using the wrong ones. And his tactics are informed by a desire to confront his enemies. Now, in most cases, and especially in politics, confrontations is not what you want. You do not want to confront your enemies, because the outcome may not, in fact, in most cases, will not be in your favor. The more desirable tactic, at least the tactic I would use if I was in some people's shoes, was to retreat. Temporarily retreat, regroup, and then come back when your enemies least expect it. Now, it is super fascinating in all past cases where a president has wanted to get rid of their deputy in Kenya. The people involved, the victims, if I can call them that, have always used the confrontation approach. They have all failed to see the huge advantages of a temporary tactical retreat. They have all responded emotionally rather than mentally. And in politics, that is very critical. Because if you respond emotionally in politics, you're done. For starters, chances are very high that you're walking into a trap. You're doing exactly what your opponents wanted you to do. Now, let's just go back a bit very quickly into history and see what happened. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga resigned from being the first president of the Republic of Kenya on 14th April 1966. And in doing so, he did exactly what his opponents, his political opponents, wanted him to do. He played right into their hands. Reason? He got very emotional about the whole issue. Okay, he had good reason to get emotional. He was the single factor, most important, significant factor, that had handed over the presidency to Jomo Kenyatta. Indeed, the British had told him that they wanted to give Kenya independence, and were prepared to work with him so that he becomes the first president of Kenya. Instead, he launched a campaign for Jomo Kenyatta to be released from detention. And then gave Jomo Kenyatta full support to become president, prime minister first and then president. So, of course, an emotional reaction is justified here. I helped you to become president, and this is how you pay me back. That's human. However, this is politics. It's not personal. And this is what Jaramogi failed to see. It is very interesting just how smart and clever Jaramogi's opponents were. Because they knew that Jaramogi's main think tank was a man called Pio Gama Pinto, a Kenyan gone. Pio Gama Pinto was his main advisor, a very smart guy. Now it is very interesting that before Pio Gama Pinto was assassinated, he was actually warned, by his political opponent, a man called Tom Mboya. And Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was even prepared to assist him to flee the country until things cooled down. He even arranged for him to leave Nairobi, and to travel to Mombasa. And then from Mombasa, it would be easy for him to leave the country. But then another man called Joseph Murumbi, the second vice president of Kenya, came into the picture. At that time, of course, he was not vice president. He was a cabinet minister in charge of foreign affairs. Murumbi was a very close friend of Pio Gama Pinto. And so when he heard that Pio Gama Pinto had fled the city, he wanted to know why. And he was told there was a plot to kill him. So Murumbi asked, who is trying to kill Pinto? And then he was told, Jomo Kenyatta and his kitchen cabinet. And Murumbi just laughed. He said, that is impossible. I know Jomo Kenyatta very well. He could never, not in 100 years, get involved in a plan to assassinate Pio Gama Pinto. I know Jomo very well. And Murumbi said, get Pinto back to Nairobi, you guys. Get serious. I'm going to even talk to Jomo, and get this thing sorted out. There's nothing like that. And so, Pinto came back to Nairobi, and walked back straight to his assassination and death on 25th February 1965. So with Pinto out of the way, the opponents of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga knew very well that this man was going to react emotionally. And by him reacting emotionally, they were going to finish him politically. Now there's a super fascinating aside that I cannot help sharing here. You know, in life, sons are the ones who are quickest to learn from the mistakes of their fathers. And if you look at the political moves by a man called Raila Odinga, the son of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, you will realize that Raila does not react emotionally when it comes to politics. If he reacted emotionally when it comes to politics, the handshake would never have happened. And that is not even a good example. When NDP, Raila Odinga's NDP, merged with KANU, many people could not believe. Because Moi was responsible for a lot of suffering of Raila Odinga in detention, for political reasons. How was it possible, that somebody who had tortured you in detention, jailed you without trial for very many years, how was it possible that you could actually talk to that man again, let alone form a political union with that person? Anyway, I think I've gotten my point across. In the 80s, another vice president, Dr. Josephat Karanja, who was previously the vice chancellor of the University of Nairobi, found himself in precisely the same position as Deputy President William Ruto finds himself today. And again, Bwana Karanja reacted emotionally, especially when they started involving his wife. They got very personal, because Dr. Karanja's wife was a Ugandan. And somebody started implying that it was very dangerous, to have a foreigner as a wife when you're so close to the presidency. Now, in the case of Jaramogi, if he had resisted his emotions, and accepted to be a vice president of Nyanza only, instead of the entire country, and did what I call a tactical retreat, then he'd have confused his opponents. And I believe he would have repositioned himself, for a political counterattack later, even if it was 3 years later, 4 years later, whatever. Instead, he responded emotionally and went into political oblivion for most of his life. Now, had Josephat Karanja used those beautiful brains he had, that he had made so many contributions with, to academia. If he had applied them to his situation and ignored his emotions, he would at the very least have survived and build up quite a large political following for himself to actually later run for the presidency. For instance, he would have lobbied to be reassigned, maybe to another ministerial post. Indeed, that's what happened to Kibaki. Kibaki was dropped from the vice presidency and became health cabinet minister and seemed to be very comfortable. It is instructive that Mwai Kibaki later on ended up being president of Kenya. The long and short of what I'm saying is that the tactics being employed by the deputy president and his camp are in fact very familiar. Other people have applied them, and other people have failed miserably applying those kind of tactics. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.